What's up, folks? It's Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy, and we're back once again, this time with some UFC DFS picks and lineup advice, both FanDuel and DraftKings, this time for Fight Island 3, Whittaker versus Till. In this video, we're going to give you some MMA picks, talk about fights you need to target, fights you want to avoid, discuss some projected ownership, and general high-level strategies for building your lineups for Saturday's slate. Now, normally we use the Occupy model in these videos, but that is behind the paywall with the return of a major North American sport, OccupyFantasy.com, where you can access the MMA Occupy model with a premium membership. We will still highlight and point out some of the key metrics from the Occupy model for this video, so don't worry. We'll still have some of those nuggets for you. Before we get started, go ahead and click that subscribe button below. That way you get access to all of our latest YouTube videos as soon as they're released. Give us a thumbs up if you like this video. Any comments you have, questions, concerns, topics you want to talk about for this particular UFC DFS slate, hit us up in the comment section below. And as always, we love to hear your opinion. Let us know who you think will be the highest scoring DraftKings fighter on the entire slate. Comment with your opinion. Feel free to argue with others. So, Whittaker versus Till. This slate is going to be very interesting. It is 15 fights. The first 15 fight card we've seen since we've been doing these videos, and I think maybe ever for a DraftKings slate. So tons of fights, presents some solutions based on ownership and some problems based on the sheer number of fights. And in addition to that, we have just 4 fighters over that 90 OF index mark. If you've been around before, you know our OF index is our proprietary metric in our Occupy model that ranks every fighter on the slate. 90 is that threshold for an elite play. Last slate, when we had fewer fights, we had 7 guys hit that mark. Before then, the slate before that, we had even more fighters over that 90 OF index mark. So with just 4 fighters this time, it shows us how little upside there is on this slate. We look to the betting markets. We see that the first round knockout potential for the slate is extremely low. Normally we get a few fighters, 35% chance or higher to get that round 1 finish. This slate, we only have one. Our boy Chumiev, who's back fighting again. He's at 44% chance for a first round finish. No one else on the slate is higher than 25%. Then to top it all off, we have maybe the worst fantasy main event, Whittaker versus Till, that we've seen in a while. So let's start there with the main event. And let's hop over to DraftKings so you can see this. And in this main event, Whittaker versus Till, one, it's the lowest main event we've seen in our Occupy model. Neither of the fighters rank in the top 5, which is pretty startling when it's the only 5-round fight on a 15 fight card. And both guys just have historical poor volume in their fights. Whittaker does rank higher. He's a little bit bigger favorite. And you'll see here, he does have some upside in KO potential, but this fight is expected to nearly go the distance, so we can't count on a KO here. And even in his decisions, 94 points, so you can see it here, 94 points in his last 5-round fight, and then 70-point decision. Not great if we're looking at 5 rounds. Till is even worse from that perspective. Let's go over to Darren Till. He legit had a 53-point decision last fight out. And then maybe the most mind-blowing stat, in 2018 against Thompson, 5-round main event, went to a decision, he won, and he scored 59 DraftKings points in a win in 5 rounds. So it's not like we get a crazy amount of extra volume here from this main event. So it's not a must-have by any means, but again, this is a low upside slate. We do want to prioritize these guys a little bit compared to other fighters in 3-round fights. But it's not a must-have. You don't need 100% exposure to this fight. You can certainly fade this fight in quite a few lineups, even if you're only making a couple. So pretty crazy to see that. The other interesting thing on DraftKings is that I always wondered when this would happen because this fight is close and DraftKings prices their fighters based on money line and odds to win, not upside, that we normally see a minus 200, minus 250 favorite in the main event near that 9K mark. And the underdog is near the low 7K mark. But because this fight is a coin flip, look at these prices. We see Whittaker at 8,300, 7,900 for Till. Massive discounts, at least for the favorite, in a 5-round fight. So Whittaker especially looks good from that number. But again, still low volume and not something we can generally take advantage of. And I think that'll actually keep the ownership in check, especially on FanDuel. Let's go over to FanDuel really quickly. Let's clear this dummy lineup. Whittaker is the most expensive fighter on the slate. They didn't change based on the money line. They didn't change based on the low volume because Whittaker and Till are still top 5 fighters on the slate, and I imagine that'll keep their ownership down quite a bit, especially when we have some of these other guys in this top price range. All right, let's go back to DraftKings. The other issue on the slate, we have a bunch of olds, guys nearing the end of the road. 5 fighters, age 37 or older. We have Shogun and Rua in this second to last fight of the night, the nursing home event. These guys are fighting for like the 50th time. Rua is 38. Shogun is 44. Guys out there just in their walkers gonna fight. Who knows? Wide range of outcomes. No idea what's in their gas tanks. No idea what's in their skill level. Pretty interesting fight from that perspective. Not great to see 2 olds fight like that. We have Trinaldo, who's fighting a newcomer, which is an interesting dynamic. We can go down to Trinaldo here. Where is he? There he is. Against Jai Herbert. Trinaldo is 41. We have Verdum against Gustafsson. Verdum is 42, second oldest on the slate. He looked, frankly, out of shape and slow in his last fight. And then we have Correa. If we scroll down and find her, she's 37. So lots of olds. Flip it around, we have 4 newcomers. So we have, we talked about Herbert already, who actually ranks pretty highly in the model. Let's bring up Herbert here. Jai Herbert, 7,700. One of the best money lines in this range, and the money is moving for him. He's an unknown based on his lack of UFC stats. We have Niklas Stolze, who to me, frankly, I'm surprised he's a plus 300 underdog. 6,800, and traditionally gets first round finishes in his pre-UFC fights. And he's fighting a fighter in Mvp who is a pretty low DraftKings score, low output. I mean, look at Mvp's numbers: 71, 65, 54 in wins, DraftKings points. So a low volume fighter against a newcomer, to me, that's pretty interesting for the newcomer. Lots of chances to win. I don't know why he's plus 300. Pretty interesting. Another newcomer we have is Rhys Mckee, who, where is he? He's fighting our boy Chumiev from last slate or 2 slates ago. And Mckee is just 6,400, the lowest price underdog we've seen in quite a while. And then finally we have John Castaneda, who is fighting in the first fight of the night against Wood. Castaneda, a low-level prospect. But again, think about it this way. If we have a bunch of known fighters who have low upsides, but we have unknown fighters where the margins of error are pretty wide for their betting odds, their potential stats, we should target those guys a little more. When we have unknowns, the other guys, we know they have low upside. These guys, we don't know if they have high upside. They might, and in high-risk contests, that could be beneficial. So keep that in mind when you're building lineups. If you're choosing between 2 fighters, and one definitely has a low ceiling, but the other is unknown, go with the unknown in a high-risk contest because there's the possibility, the unknown, that he could have a higher ceiling. He or she could have a higher ceiling. Because we do have a bunch of lower scoring favorites on the slate. We talked about Mvp already. If we look at Dalby, let's sort by salary here on DraftKings. Mvp at 9,400, just unbelievably badly priced based on his upside. Dalby, low wins. I mean, 68 points, 84 points, 88 points. Nothing, if he'd have won this fight against Till, 88 points. 9,200, a lot to pay for his upside. And then we also have Evloev. Let's get him at 9,100 against Grundy. And again, 86 points in his last win, 83 points. Another low volume type of guy. Now, these fighters, even in wins, they're going to need a knockout, especially to surpass guys like Wood near the top, who has a decently high finish percent, and Chumiev, who is 9,800. If you recall, he was a top of the model play making his debut 2 slates ago. Absolutely punished John Phillips. And now he's back as a minus 1250 favorite. He's like minus 500 to win before a decision is made. I mean, unreal. Absolutely unreal price at 9,800. On FanDuel, Chimaev is just $20. He's going to be the highest owned fighter on both slates, but his upside is arguably the highest on the entire slate. His odds to win is easily the highest on the entire slate. So Chimaev's a guy you want to get into your lineups. FanDuel, you'll have to get tricky because he's going to approach 30% in the MVP spot, as he should. Approach 60% overall. On DraftKings, he's going to approach 60% overall, as he should, because he's in such a good spot. If you're making a handful of lineups, I would argue the best bet is probably just play him as much as you can and then figure out the rest of your lineup. We can get unique in other ways, even as a 60% favorite. Minus 1250 is pretty unheard of. Nothing's a lock in UFC, especially against an unknown making his debut, especially with a guy, Chimaev, who's fighting twice in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, whatever it is. But again, it's a pretty big mismatch. Now, if you're playing a ton of lineups, maybe you fade Chimaev, maybe you play Mckee some. But again, for most of you listening, just making a handful of lineups, just play Chimaev in every lineup. And then we can figure out a way to get unique, as we always do. All right, let's move on here. Okay, one fight that I want to discuss. Let's go back to DraftKings here. And let's sort by the fights once again. It is this fight. Paul Craig and then Antigulov. This fight is going to be crazy. If you watch one fight on this entire slate, it's this fight right here. I encourage you, if you have 4 minutes of your time, go watch all 4 of Antigulov's UFC fights. That's all it'll take is 4 minutes, I promise. Every fight's ended pretty much instantly. This guy's insane. Absolutely insane. And it's not like his UFC fights are out of the ordinary. His pre-UFC fights, exact same way. This guy, what he does, he just goes for takedowns, goes for knockouts, goes for submissions at all costs. He's either going to knock you down, take you down, submit you, knock you out, or he's going to be knocked unconscious. His last 2 fights, the latter has happened, but he's still aggressive. The dude averages 21 takedown attempts per 15 minutes. Now, the problem is he's never made it 15 minutes. All these numbers are prorated based on his 45 seconds of fight time. He literally had 8 takedown attempts in half a round in 2 fights ago. His wins, if you look at Antigulov, 99 and 98. Let's scroll down a bit here so we can see it. Pretty unfortunate in the sense that he got those pretty instantly, like the first 30 seconds of the fight. If Craig can hold on just a couple minutes, Antigulov easily has a 100-point upside. Now, on the flip side, Craig, his opponent, because Antigulov is so completely batshit crazy and will go for anything and has a glass chin, Craig can easily get a first-round KO. In fact, this fight is one of the most likely to end before a decision is made. So, handful of lineups, getting near 100% exposure to this fight. Really helps that they're both evenly matched on the money line, and the fact that they're 8,200 and 8K respectively makes them really affordable, super high upside, probably the highest upside per dollar on the slate. If we go over the FanDuel, we see Antigulov is $17, Paul Craig $15. Again, values over there as well with their first round KO chances. Get those guys. Again, please go watch Antigulov's fights. YouTube, just search his name. You won't be disappointed, and you'll be excited to watch his fight on Saturday. All right. Let's see. I think we've hit almost everything here. Let's talk about some FanDuel MVP options. Since we're on the FanDuel page, Chimaev is going to be the most popular, 25 to 30%. We like him there. If you play him, you can only use 2 high-owned fighters in your flex spots, so be cognizant of that. Other guys who have high first-round KO potential, we have Nathaniel Wood at $19. Aspinall, who is also making his debut. Missed his name earlier when we were discussing guys making their debut, but Tom Aspinall, he's got a decent chance to win by KO or submission, so let's not rule him out, especially as an MVP. We talked about Craig and Antigulov. Of course, the olds, Rua and Shogun, both of those guys in that fight, certainly options because we don't know what their outcome ranges are at their age. And then Alexander Gustafsson, another not high, but higher on the slate, first round KO chance. And Oliveira rounds out the top, Alex Oliveira. Guys who lead the slate in first round knockout probabilities. So go ahead and take your notes, mark those down. If you don't want to use Chimaev, you can use one of those fighters in your MVP spot. If you don't use Chimaev, use one of those fighters we just talked about. You can have up to 3 high-owned fighters in your flex spots and still be unique. We do have projected ownership in our Occupy model, occupyfantasy.com, that updates live until the slate begins 5 p.m. on Saturday. So be sure to check that out. That link is in the description below. All right, we talked about FanDuel. Okay, as always, we like to talk about DraftKings lineup construction too. Not going to build a lineup here, but in high-risk contests, 2 ways to go about it, as always. 1, leave at least $1,000 on the table, especially on a 15-fight card. Anything can happen, especially if you use Chimaev. You got to leave $1,000 or more to have a chance at not tying with 50 or 100 people. The other option, you can get closer to 50K, but you have to use like 4 or 5 underdogs. And maybe you go Chimaev and 5 underdogs, Chimaev and 4 underdogs. That could happen too. It really depends. The salary usage is the key on DraftKings, where FanDuel, the MVP, is the key. Two very different strategies for either site. All right, that'll do it for this video. Appreciate you watching. Remember, we are going live on Twitch, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Saturday, twitch.tv/OccupyFantasy. Link in the description below. Go follow us over there. Where we answer your questions live about the slate. Again, you can comment below with any questions you have as well. Go ahead and subscribe. Click that subscribe button. That we get our latest videos here on YouTube when they're released. Give us a thumbs up if you like the video. And OccupyFantasy.com, it is now behind the paywall, but the most affordable membership in the DFS industry. Go get access to the MMA model that we've talked about here for the past few weeks on YouTube. All right, good luck this week. I'm Brian Jester from Occupy Fantasy. We'll talk to you soon, and let's hope someone here takes down the tournament.